I'm Jeremy Scahill coming to you from Dropsite News, dropsitenews.com. Thank you so much for joining us on our regular weekly live stream. I'm really honored that my friend and one of the great voices on Palestine, not just during this genocide, but for several decades, Ali Abu Nama, the executive director of Electronic Intifada, is going to be joining me for a wide-ranging discussion on the state of the so-called ceasefire in Gaza. And as we're speaking right now, Israel already is continuing its pattern of violating this supposed agreement that Donald Trump is touting as the most magnificent peace plan that has ever been unleashed on the Middle East. Israel has not upheld the terms of the agreement that it signed regarding aid that's going to be coming in. And the term aid actually is not the appropriate word for what we're discussing here, because as you'll recall, when Israel blew up the original January ceasefire deal on March 2nd, it did so by imposing a full spectrum blockade on the Palestinians of Gaza, where no food, no medicine, no fuel, no supplies were permitted to enter the Gaza Strip, neither from the territory controlled by Israel nor through Palestine's international border on the Rafah crossing with Egypt. This withholding of aid, this blockade, of course, was a very clear war crime intended to collectively punish the Palestinians of Gaza. So when we're talking about aid deliveries, what we're really talking about are life essentials that Israel has systematically prevented from reaching Gaza, as it destroyed systematically the hospital and medical system in the country, the bakeries, the food distribution programs, basically imposed a situation where no international organizations that historically have been responsible for ensuring that flour gets to bakeries, that soup kitchens and community sites for people to get meals are functional, and they only allowed in their mercenary organization from the just ridiculously and lethally ridiculously named Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And of course, more than 2,000 Palestinians were killed since the GHF arrived in Gaza in May. So Israel has been refusing even to allow in the bare minimum of life essential supplies, and they're making all kinds of false allegations that the Palestinian side, that Hamas is not upholding its part of the agreement. And the Trump administration, even privately last night, told journalists that this is not true, that actually Hamas has not been in any way violating the ceasefire agreement. So this is exclusively on Israel, and Israel has also done a number of strikes. Palestinians continue to be killed by American bombs fired by Israeli forces. And the Palestinian resistance, of course, as part of this deal, handed over to Israel the 20 living Israeli captives that were still in the custody of the Palestinian resistance. And in exchange for those captives, some 1,700 plus Palestinians that had been kidnapped from Gaza in the aftermath of October 7th were returned to the Palestinian side. Some of them, though, have been deported to other countries, mostly Egypt. And others are coming back into Gaza and telling horrifying stories of the torture that they endured in the gulags that they were held by Israel. And if you compare how the Israelis look in the media coverage to how the Palestinians look, you can see a clear distinction. The Palestinian resistance was holding these Israeli captives while Israel was systematically bombing and targeting all of Gaza's territory. And the Palestinian prisoners look like the descriptions that you often hear of what it's like in these Israeli prisons. They're emaciated, some are in wheelchairs, some have had limbs amputated, some have gone blind. And this morning, I was looking at some unspeakably graphic images that have been released by the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza of the bodies of Palestinians who have been returned to Gaza as part of the exchange deal. This is something that isn't often spoken about in Western media. It almost goes unmentioned. But for decades, Israel has had a practice of holding Palestinian bodies. There are more than 700 Palestinian bodies being held hostage, even though they're dead, by Israel. Some of them for decades. There's one Palestinian political prisoner who died on hunger strike in 1980, and his body has been held for 45 years by Israel. And the formula in this so-called ceasefire agreement is that for each body of a deceased Israeli that is going to be returned to Israel, 15 Palestinian bodies are supposed to be returned to Palestine. And Donald Trump has made a big deal about saying of Hamas that only sick and twisted people hold dead bodies. There are believed to be roughly 28 bodies of deceased captives, some of them killed by Israeli bombing, held by the resistance. Last night, the Qassam brigades put out a statement saying that they have returned all of the bodies that they can retrieve without Israeli forces pulling back from areas where some of them are buried under the rubble, alongside certainly Palestinians that have been killed. There are international teams that are supposed to be coming in now to try to help retrieve some of those bodies, but that has formed the foundation of Israel's new line that Hamas is violating the agreement because they haven't handed over all of the deceased Israeli captives. Last night, a senior Trump administration official gave an on background briefing saying that Israel knew well that the Palestinian side had said that it would be impossible to retrieve all of these dead Israeli captives without massive equipment to remove rubble and without some international assistance. So it's just one example of how Israel twists the narrative in an effort to try to justify continuing to kill Palestinians, continuing to starve Palestinians. But I want to just